In this next scene, we see the opening as another example of the color schemes and color choices it is that I mentioned previously. When we look at this scene in terms of the color scheme, we see the camera is moving from a blue dominant scene of the lobby to the coziness of the brown-orange office of Brian. Whereas the light outside feels overwhelming in how it penetrates the smoky atmosphere of the lobby office, here this feels more like a place where humans actually live. In film, the color script moves and reflects the meaning and focus of each scene. Over time, it will build up to specific moments. Color is used to communicate ideas so that they seem to emerge naturally from the visuals. The theme in the color, as I mentioned before, is the blue color representing the artificial, while the orange representing a more human element of the film. What I think is worth noting here right away from a design perspective is that the blue is never out of sight. There is no hiding from the presence of the electronic alien-like life form of technology, and it's represented here within the environment as a square, unnatural shape that sits over Ryan's right shoulder. No matter what area of the film it is that we're looking at, no matter what the shot is, there's always this electronic buzz that seems to be haunting the characters in the background. We also see in this scene, Deckard does something that John Truby in The Anatomy of Story says is vitally important for a character to do in order for us to have empathy with him, which is that he makes a choice. Brian belittles and taunts Deckard, humoring his attempts at pushing back against his offer to come back as a Blade Runner, and he puts 2 shots of liquor in front of him. Deckard picks one up, and even though he protests Brian knows he has him as he takes the shot. We are seeing symbolically Deckard using the alcohol to numb himself, preparing himself for going back to the duties of being a Blade Runner. This is a motif often used in writing. The character should have a fault, a problem that he isn't dealing with at the beginning of the story, and this is their coping mechanism. This allows us to connect with them empathically and go along with them on the ride of watching this character change over the process of the story. The use of alcohol is a good vessel for this, as alcohol deadens our ability to feel empathy towards others. Deckard then almost seems like he is going through the motions of resisting Brian about becoming a Blade Runner, and finally succumbs to Brian's belittlement. When he does, we immediately transition to a scene that is saturated with this blue artificial color that was mentioned before, which again connects this color with the replicants, as this is where we are introduced to the Nexus 6 group that has escaped towards Earth. We are told that the Nexus 6 group have made their way to Earth, but we don't know why. This connects with the theme mentioned before. If the ad balloon at the opening shot promises us a fresh start in the off-world colony, why are the replicants running back to Earth? The grass is not greener on the other side. After this, we get another iconic scene in Blade Runner, where Deckard meets Rachel. Deckard goes to the Tyrell Corporation headquarters, and we again see the majesty of the godlike appearance of the Tyrell building, along with Mr. Tyrell himself. The majestic music that plays in the beginning as Deckard sits in the main hall of the Tyrell building is fitting for the landscape shot we see, that feels like a glimpse into ancient times. This mesh between the enigmatic design of the corporation buildings and the filth that the average human lives in is a great contrast that shows us the world of the 1% versus the rest of us. As we go through the scene, we see that Tyrell is setting up Deckard to see if Rachel can pass the Voight Kampf. It takes over 100 questions, and we are told that Rachel has memories implanted into her in order to give her the appearance of being real. This has led her to be more human, although she's only been around for a few short years. As I came across this scene, I wanted to cross-reference his book, The Exegesis, which is a collection of journal entries by Philip K. Dick, and see what he has to say about false memories. And this is what it is that I found. Quote, "The pleasant illusory skin stretched over a dreadful reality. This, the cardinal fixed idea of all my writings has been this, plus the theme that I am not who or what I think I am. In particular, my true identity is obscured by fake memories. Reality is not as it appears to be. So for me, in terms of the history of my world perceptions, the vision of the external black iron prison planet, and at the same time an inner transformation of me from my limited false ego identity to the immortal visitor," end quote. What it is that Philip K. Dick is referencing is his incident at 374, where Philip K. Dick had a mystical experience. I've mentioned this before in previous episodes, and I'll include a link to an R. Crumb comic that illustrates the mystical experience that Philip K. Dick had in the description. After having this experience, he became increasingly concerned with the idea that he was not who it is that he thought he was, that Philip K. Dick was not him. And he often mentions in Exegesis that the books it is that he wrote, he read them before he ever wrote them. He mentions several times in Exegesis this idea of a black iron prison planet in reference to books that he wrote, such as Ubik, Maze, or Stigmata. But I think that this also applies to Blade Runner. As mentioned before, the people that live in this world seem to not believe in anything beyond a corporation, beyond the technology that has given them the world it is that they live in. This idea of false memories is also explored in other stories of his, such as Total Recall, where people voluntarily get memories implanted into them as a simulation of the real thing, and thus can become anything it is that they want for a price.